welcome to this week's module. We're going to be focusing on technology and technology assessments for whether that's formative or summative assessments. So I just want to go over this with you in a little brief introduction. So you'll notice depending on which specific class you're in, you're going to notice from module 10, you're going to go in here, you'll see the video lecture. I suggest you watch that. Some good resources in there for you as well, and discusses some ways in which you can utilize assessment technologies in your teaching. And here is the drop box. Now, when I go into the assignment itself, the module, you will notice it pops up, and it's pretty straightforward. And there's going to be some choice this week in terms of what you can actually go ahead and utilize for the assignment options. So I try to break it up and make it so that you have a little bit of a choice in this one. Now, you'll notice your three objectives for this one are to create various assessments via technology. Those, again, as I mentioned, that can be summative assessments or formative assessments. How to utilize assessment technologies as a data collection tool. And then lastly, use technology as a recording, analysis, and communication tool. I'm just going to scroll through here for the moment. And you'll notice there's a couple of readings that pop up. The first one is from the United States Department of Education. It's a fantastic resource about how to utilize technology for assessment purposes, especially in K-12 education. And this is a great article, or really that's a conference presentation, seminar presentation from the University of Texas that talks about effective use of digital age assessments as our students now, so much of it is technology-based. Tutorials, there's some tutorials in here and some different assessment examples, some of the different technology options which are available for you. Now, the big thing I wanted to touch on here, again, you can go in and read the specific requirements, but you're going to be given 4 categories of assessment technologies, and you're going to choose one from 3 of those different categories. So, for instance, you'll notice there's category 1, which is personalized survey or exam. Category 2, which is going to be interactive presentation assessment tools. Category 3, assessment with video. And then category 4, which I just called Wildcard, because that one's completely up to you. Now notice there's 4 categories. You will select 3 of those categories and then select 1 technology from each category. So you'll have 3 different assessments total for this specific activity. When you go and look at each individual category, you'll see their specific requirements. These are going to be somewhat broad because it just depends really on which technology you choose. And you'll notice I mentioned in here as well that some of these requirements might not even be applicable to your specific technology. So for instance, Socrative, Kahoot, Google Forms, quizzes, they all have different functions and features, and some of these might not transfer to the other. That's okay. Like some have more question types than the other, for instance, or they allow you to use images or videos in different ways. So, or some not at all. So that's what I'm talking about there with that flexibility. Second option, this is for interactive presentations, how to enhance Google Slides presentations or PowerPoint presentations, for instance. You can see the options there, Nearpod, Pear Deck, Poll Everywhere. There's others as well. Feel free to utilize whatever you would like. Category 3 is assessment with videos. This could be Edpuzzles, could be Play Pause It, this could be Flipgrid. Again, it's up to you. Select one of those specific technologies, check the requirements. And then lastly, category 4, which I referred to earlier as the wildcard category. How exciting. This is an article from the NWA, which is an education association out in Portland, Oregon, headquartered in Oregon, I should say. And this provides you with 75 different tools and apps that teachers can use to support formative assessment. Some of them could even be summative assessment as well. And you see as you scroll down through here, it's a very recent article. This is just from January of last year, and it's pretty good stuff. It has 75 different assessment technologies and also gives you a brief description on them. Some of them are free, some of them are pay, but I'll let you kind of play around with those and figure that out. For this category, the options, so I assume the requirements are really flexible because it's going to really totally depend on what you do in there. One thing I did want to point out is you will notice back up here under tutorials, I do have some tutorials that I have personally recorded, but there's so many options available for this particular module that I couldn't possibly do modules for all, or tutorials for all of them. So feel free to go on YouTube and check them out. Again, look at the assessment examples that we have in here. I think this will also help you kind of generate some ideas. Now, one thing I did also want to mention to you is that these technologies should be connected to the same theme. So actually, I'm going to go in here and go ahead and change that. So they want to be connected to the same theme or the same curriculum strain, but they can be 3 different lessons or activities or assessments, if that makes sense. But they need to be within a structural framework of one particular, I don't want to say necessarily even lesson or unit, but within something you're doing related to a specific standard or standards for your grade level or content area. Okay, so please make sure that those are connected. That way I can see where the assessments go and make sure they're connected and measuring different things, for instance. Here's the criteria. I'm looking at basically what strategies did you use? Do I feel, or did you demonstrate, I should say, that this is an effective way to actually measure your students' learning? Again, here you go. Are they tied into specific curriculum goals and those technologies? Is that everything aligned, or do they just not make any sense? What is the expectation of the person or the student taking the assessment? Make sure there's directions for them. I know sometimes you can provide more or less depending on the assessment itself, but try to do your best to get that in there. The technology selections, do I think that they make sense? And did you come across and provide them, or is it just 3 random things thrown together, or do these 3 technology choices really flow in sequence with each other? What is the general fit of these technologies? Did you meet all the requirements specifically listed for the categories? Conventions, just simply spelling, grammar, all that fun stuff. And then shared links. So when you submit this, you're going to submit one, either Google Doc, or not a Google Doc, but a Microsoft Word document or a PDF with all the hyperlinks to your specific assessments, and they should all work. Just like if, for instance, you're a substitute teacher, or I'm sorry, you're not there and you have a substitute teacher in the room, and you share with them a hyperlink to these different assessments, they should be able to open for anybody, anywhere, anytime. So I know some like Socrata, for instance, you need a room, specifically a room. Edpuzzle, same thing, a code. Kahoot has a code. So make sure you include those in there if there are any of that for your activity, so I can actually go in and see it. All right. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing what you come up with, some creativity, and I hope you find new ways to assess your students, not just the traditional answer like Google Forms, is the quiz question, is it right or is it wrong, but finding ways to implement formative assessments into your learning to get real-time feedback to your students, but also snapshots as to where they are in your class at that time. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and shoot me an email.